Coming up on 5 Minute News. Political stalemate could delay COVID funds for months. Slave reparations campaigners celebrate historic report. And leading scientist warns climate crisis will be devastating. It's Thursday, June 2. I'm Anthony Davis. The US is heading for a lot of unnecessary loss of life, the Biden administration has said, if Congress fails to provide billions more dollars to brace for the pandemic's next wave. Yet the quest for that money is in limbo, the latest victim of election year gridlock that stalled or killed a host of Democratic priorities. President Joe Biden's appeal for funds for vaccines, testing and treatments has hit opposition from Republicans who've fused the fight with the precarious politics of immigration. Congress is in recess and the next steps are uncertain, despite admonitions from White House COVID-19 coordinator Dr. Ashish Jha of damaging consequences from every day we wait. Administration officials say they're running low on money to stock up on, or even begin to order the latest vaccines, tests and treatments. Also lacking are funds to reimburse doctors treating uninsured patients and to help poor countries control the pandemic. House and Senate Democrats have been wrangling over how to resolve the stalemate and even over which chamber should vote first. It's an open question whether they'll ever get the GOP votes they need to pull the legislation through the 50-50 Senate, and prospects in the narrowly divided House are unclear as well. Optimists hope the measure could start rolling once Congress returns next week. Pessimists say without quick resolution, Democrats may not have enough leverage to push the money to passage until early fall. That's when they could stuff it into legislation that will probably be needed to finance government, a bill that would avert a federal shutdown, a pre-election distraction Republicans will be desperate to avoid. The slavery reparations movement hit a watershed moment on Wednesday with the release of an exhaustive report detailing California's role in perpetuating discrimination against African Americans, a major step toward educating the public and setting the stage for an official government apology and case for financial restitution. The 500-page document lays out the harm suffered by descendants of enslaved people even today, long after slavery was abolished in the 19th century, through discriminatory laws and actions in all facets of life, from housing and education to employment and the legal system. Longtime reparations advocate Justin Hansford, who is a law professor at Howard University and director of the Thurgood Marshall Civil Rights Center in Washington, called the moment exciting and monumental. The report comes at a time when school boards and states across the US are banning books or restricting what can be taught in classrooms, with right-wing parents and lawmakers largely opposed to topics of sexuality, gender identity or race. State lawmakers have tried to bar schools from teaching the 1619 Project, a New York Times Pulitzer Prize-winning report that reframes American history with enslaved people at its heart. California Governor Gavin Newsom signed legislation creating the 2-year task force in 2020, making California the only state to move ahead with a study and plan. Cities and universities have taken up the cause, with the Chicago suburb of Evanston, Illinois, becoming the first city to make reparations available to black residents last year. The world cannot adapt its way out of the climate crisis, and counting on adaptation to limit damage is no substitute for urgently cutting greenhouse gases, a leading climate scientist has warned. Catherine Hayhoe, chief scientist at the Nature Conservancy in the US and professor at Texas Tech University, said the world was headed for dangers unseen in the 10,000 years of human civilization, and efforts to make the world more resilient were needed, but by themselves could not soften the impact enough. People do not understand the magnitude of what is going on, she said. This will be greater than anything we have ever seen in the past. This will be unprecedented. Every living thing will be affected. If global heating is allowed to continue, then the world will rapidly reach a point beyond what can be adapted to. These impacts would be felt across the world, she warned. Our infrastructure, worth trillions of dollars, built over decades, was built for a planet that no longer exists, she said. The whole of modern life was at stake, she added. Human civilization is based on the assumption of a stable climate, she said, but we are moving far beyond the stable range. However, the world's leading climate scientists, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, warned earlier this year that continued global heating, beyond 1.5 centigrade above pre-industrial levels, would wreak devastation across the globe in the form of floods, droughts, heat waves and other extreme weather, with swathes of the planet becoming unsuitable for agriculture and effectively uninhabitable, causing extreme harm to human society in many places. Hayhoe said the IPCC findings had not been broadly understood by many people. The reality is that we will not have anything left that we value if we do not address the climate crisis. You can subscribe to 5 Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5 Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5 Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.